Hello everyone, welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more exciting true crime content. Today we look at a Mitcham man who toured with JLS and NDubz after a stint on X Factor and was one of 8 jailed for his part in an industrial scale fraud that callously and systematically targeted and scammed elderly and vulnerable victims out of £1 million. Nathan Abraham Lauren Fagan Gale, 29 of Mitcham, was one of 8 jailed for a total of 34 years on Wednesday, May the 4th. Known as Starboy Nathan, he had top 40 singles with Come Into My Room and Diamonds, and has more than 18,000 followers on Twitter. He appeared on X Factor in its 9th series in 2012 and later on Celebrity Big Brother. At the time, the R&B singer-songwriter was praised by Gary Barlow, Talisa and Louis Walsh for having an amazing voice. It's been reported that the court heard he received £20,000 in his bank from 73-year-old Elizabeth Curtis. During the trial, the court heard how the pensioner had been tricked into handing over the money by a fake police officer. It was reported that he apologised to his elderly victim in court. The Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command, or SO15, found that the scam involved members of the group working together to gain the trust of their victims, who were normally elderly or vulnerable adults, and persuade them to hand over cash to fake couriers. The victims were led to believe these people were working for the police on secret investigation. In one case, a 76-year-old woman from Poole, Dorset, was targeted by the group and defrauded of just over £135,000. In another, a 94-year-old man from northwest London had £130,000 stolen after handing it over to the fraudsters. One of the biggest ever courier fraud investigations carried out by UK police identified about 140 frauds and attempted courier frauds carried out by the group in Bedfordshire, Devon, Hertfordshire, Cornwall, Kent and London, the Old Bailey was told. Speaking yesterday, Commander Dean Hayden, head of the Met Counter-Terrorism Command, said, "I'm pleased with the sentences handed down to the group today. They callously and systematically defrauded elderly people of their life savings. Had we not arrested them and put them before the courts, the group may have gone on to defraud many more victims across the UK." The investigation into the group was launched in December 2014 by detectives from the National Terrorism Financial Investigation, part of SO15. When detectives carrying out separate counter-terrorism investigations noticed irregular bank transfers for large sums to an individual who was later identified as having travelled to Syria. When specialist officers from the NTFIU investigated further, they linked the payments to other members of the group. Through their inquiries, officers began to link together several courier fraud offences across the country, and they discovered 16 telephone lines the group used to make 5,695 calls to 3,774 different numbers across the UK. Officers arrested a number of suspects between March and June 2015. 6 of the defendants pleaded guilty to either conspiracy to commit fraud or money laundering offences. 4 of these were found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, and 1 was found guilty of money laundering following trial at the Old Bailey on December the 10th, 2015. The 5th was found guilty of money laundering at the Old Bailey on March the 3rd, 2016. Fagan Gale from Mitcham was sentenced to 1 year, 8 months in prison on May the 4th. He pleaded not guilty to money laundering. He was sentenced alongside 7 other men at the Old Bailey yesterday. Fahim Islam, 21, of Monthope Road, Stepney, was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in prison. He had pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Ahmed Abdulaziz Ahmed, 23, of Morgan Road, Holloway, was sentenced to 4 years and 2 months in prison. He had pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Maxumi Akbar, 24, of Holloway, was sentenced to 7 years and 4 months in prison. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Anrul Islam, 24, of Hedgemans Road, Dagenham, was sentenced to 1 year and 1 month in prison. He had pleaded guilty to money laundering and fraud. Zakaria Hayden, 22, of Stoke Newington, was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months in prison. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Mohammed Dahir, 23, of Finsbury Park, was sentenced to 1 year and 9 months in prison. He pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Yasser Akbar, 24, Holloway, was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Mohammed Yusufi, 38, of Fulham Road, West Brompton, was sentenced to 20 months in prison on September the 8th, 2015. And Mohammed Sharif Abokar, 28, of Islington, was sentenced to 18 months in prison on April the 4th, 2016. What do you think about Mr. Fagan Gale's dramatic life changes? And would you still be able to support him after he finishes this sentence? Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and a share, and leave any thoughts or suggestions you have in the comments section. We love to read through them all. And if you're new but enjoy UK true crime content, then subscribe to see when our newest video releases. And as always, stay